Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the late one on In Review with yours truly, SYLBOURNE SYDIAL. And I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening for another session of In Review, where we look at some of the top news and then we get on with it. Without further ado, so many things which are happening in the world, of course. That is something which is seem to be the norm. One of the key topics that we want to look at tonight is key things like Rashford. Rashford is somewhat creating a storm. This guy, Michael Rashford, United striker, he scores a hat trick after 1 million signature. COVID near 100,000, catching virus every day. France on lockdown again, plus at the same time some atrocities. Labour suspend Jeremy Corbyn over reaction to anti-Semitism. This seemed to be unprecedented, never heard of before, or maybe, what can I say, but a former leader of the Labour Party being suspended and possible to be expelled based on anti-Semitism. US election 2020, who is ahead, Trump or Biden? Well, will America race issues decide the next president? Why do liberals have such low expectation for black people? This is what BIM AFOLAMI, an MP, said. What's your thoughts about that? And yes, let's see what's happening. And of course, we always have to touch somewhere like in Jamaica. And without further ado, I will invite my guest this evening, the regulars, which will be coming on, Mr. David, Dr. David Burton.
Good evening. I didn't expect to see these two here.
You didn't expect to see them?
No, not at all. Not at all. Do you have to start by doing something beforehand? Do you have to sing a song?
I don't know what's happening here. Why they are here today? Because, gentlemen, before we go any further, Keima and Keisha, Alan, we want to wish them. It seems like there's so much noise in the background. I guess everybody is giving them a happy birthday as well. So, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
SYLBOURNE, should we stir the pot and ask which one was first?
Yeah, which
I was first, by the way.
But you know what? You know what? Okay, and this is where David needs to come in here because I've been reflecting. Yeah, I've been reflecting, and it's scriptural. This wasn't in the scriptural. It says the first will be last, and the last will be first. Do you not agree?
Hey, I stay out of.
I
plead the fifth.
I don't want to get involved. All I want to do is just wish you guys happy birthday.
Indeed. Happy birthday.
And
well wishes. Happy birthday.
I was listening to a song earlier, and I was trying to see if I could actually play it, but I'm not going to do that because Facebook and those guys are just crazy. They don't want to enjoy the time.
People always sing us happy birthday. There's too many different versions. Have a go, SYLBOURNE. Have a go.
Happy. I was doing the happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. And David.
That's a nice
one. What?
I can only do it once. I'm sorry.
But
he's so smart.
but I must say though, somebody sent something for you guys, and I need to actually put that up. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? Oh, it's David up. Is that David up? There we go. Happy birthday, Keima and Keisha. Can you see that?
Oh, this is nice.
Oh, that is so lovely.
Yes. Happy birthday, Keima and Keisha.
That is so lovely. Yeah.
And that was specially designed by Dean, who said, want to wish you a happy birthday today. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, there's something though I must say is that even though they're twins, there's a contention as to who came out first.
No, there's no contention. I don't know where you get that from, SYLBOURNE. It's established or written somewhere, documented somewhere. I just don't have the proof with me right now. But I am the firstborn still.
Okay.
She's trying to convince herself.
No, and I have witness. The main witness is my mother. So there you go.
So therefore, she can recall that moment and that day when it happened. Yes. Yes.
I think she's a credible witness, Silbo.
Okay. All right. Well, as David and I said, you know, this David, I think David just ignoring me. God, David, I don't know why you get that. Just move on swiftly ahead. Well, you knew the well, listen. You know, thank you guys for coming on, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Remember to like, share, and don't dislike because we're watching you. But David, I want to commend you firstly on that program that you just did tonight on prostate.
Thank you very much. You know, that's why I was a little bit late coming on. No prep, just dive straight in, followed the link. And so obviously that you've got birthday girls in the building, but thank you for sort of mentioning that. We've talked about prostate cancer, which is prevalent amongst the Black community. Just to give you a stat to wake up people this evening, prostate cancer affects 1 in 8 men, generally speaking, but in the Black African Caribbean community, it affects 1 in 4 men, doubling up. So we need to find better strategies of firstly finding out why that is. So Prostate Cancer UK, I've talked about this before, and you know, twins, you've been fantastic in supporting me in my efforts of running. So I'm really thankful for Keisha and Keima for supporting me, as well as the other people that supported. I had a patient come in today who supported me, brought in some money and said, this is for Prostate Cancer UK. So immediately I did that to the coffers of Prostate Cancer UK. We need to find out essentially what's going on in our community, why it is that we're suffering with higher rates of prostate cancer. A lot of that will boil down to genetics. Some of it will boil down to our environment, and the things that we eat, the things that we drink, in terms of cancer causing. And you know, we talked about the way that we diagnose this particular condition. There's a simple blood test that we can take as men to have that will give us an indication, but there's also other active other active diagnosis, and there's also a change in momentum in terms of how we pull together all that information. We had prostate cancer survivor on talking about his background. You know, he shared a really interesting thought, which was, you know, he's come through this successfully. So we really should be channeling what it is that he's done to sort of get through successfully. That won't work for everybody, but the point here is, you know, he's a really good success story. And then we also had a community activist, somebody that's really delved into the community to try and find ways of establishing a connection between raising awareness regards to prostate cancer and our Black community. And she used dominoes, the good old game of dominoes that is so prevalent along the Black community, and basically that was her avenue in terms of showing people, Black men especially, how important prostate cancer is. And so she has a series of videos, and it has also engaged people within the community, churchgoers, musicians, and sports people, in terms of encouraging men. So if we get to share the link a little bit later on, it'd be fantastic. You can rewind and watch it again on Facebook. And prostate David, cancer is big.
And David, if I ask you a question, what are some of the pet peeves or challenges that Black men need to get over in order to do this, or what are some of the things that hold them back? I
think the thing with men is that I'll speak for all men, we generally don't seek health advice very well. We need a significant other on our back, pushing us into the GP surgeries, pushing us into the hospitals, physically pushing us in and saying, look, you need to see somebody about this health condition. And that's just a general thing here, whether that pertains to people having symptoms or otherwise. But one of the challenges with regards to prostate cancer is that it's generally something that people may not present with symptoms very early on.
Yes.
And the symptoms are very difficult to sort of pick up. But the thing here is the challenge that most men have is the examination, I think. And that was one of the things that was picked up on. As I talked to you earlier, it's about blood tests, but also examination of the back passage. So actual physical examination. And the message from the community may well be that I'm not having that test. Like that's just not me. I'm not having anybody examine me up the back passage.
Yeah.
And I must say, it's not just a black man thing. It's a whole men thing. Men generally are remiss to having that as an examination. But we as clinicians know that it's an important tool in assessing the prostate, and it's part and parcel of the examination.
Yeah.
So it's the knowledge that that's not the only way of establishing this. As I said, there's blood tests. There's also scans that we can also do of the region of the prostate. But that also it's part and parcel of the examination. So breaking down that barrier and saying, look, it's par for the course. We need to do this in order to establish whether or not there are particular issues at hand. And as you say, don't go with the flow, but with this one, I would say go with the flow. It's something that we need to do. Examination of the body. We have to get used to our bodily parts. This is just par for the course.
Well, one question before we go. One question I wanted to ask you is this. There was something one of the gentlemen said, and one of the gentlemen said is that, or you said, we need to go and demand from the doctors to do these tests.
Correct. And I think I've said, I'll explain that to you. I've always said on this platform and others, if you ask me the question about seeking medical attention, I've said, go and see your GP when you're over 40 to have a well man's check.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. You're afforded that opportunity. Go and do it. And so, we are very fortunate in this part of the world. We have free healthcare. You call that free in any way, shape, or form. Yes, it's paid through via taxes, but the fact is it is free. It's accessible. So use that resource. We are, in comparison to other parts of the world where you may not be able to afford that resource, you have to make that difference of opinion in regards to whether you feed your kids or you go to see a health professional. We don't have to make that choice. So go and demand that you are reviewed for this particular test investigation, for a wellness test, and that's more encompassing than just a PSA. You can have a discussion about that, but if you have a family history, it puts you even a higher risk. So please seek medical attention. The fact is, seek a wellness check after the age of 40. It's as simple as that.
Well, David, we have already said we wanted to do a show on that, and we just did it.
You did it. Done. Thank you very much for affording me the time.
We did a quick one on it.
And if I could add as well, I mean, I was grateful for David today to use his platform on Facebook to communicate to the community about health and well-being, prostate cancer being one of them. But I think on a wider conversation, I don't think we have enough conversations in the Black community about health and well-being. It's we talk about politics, we talk a lot of injustices, a lot of different topics, but I don't think there is avenues, enough avenues out there for us to talk about, issues in our, pertaining to our health. And I think we need more platforms to do that.
Definitely. Keisha, anything on prostate?
No, I just welcome David's contribution today. I really do think that we do need to have more of this conversation. So this is maybe the first, but I'm expecting more from obviously David and his team to educate our community, because as Keima rightly said, we do need people to come forward and lead on these particular issue around health. So yes.
And like the diabetic is another one as well. But I mean, we're going to make sure we keep the spotlight. And thank you much for that, David. And we go straight into COVID. And as a first topic, again, what we find interesting this week is that the 100,000 they're saying catching virus every day. A question was asked, David, by someone: is it that they're being tested and the testing are reflecting these things, or is it that people are actually contracting it every day? What's your take?
I think there's 2 points here. There's going to be an underestimation of the number of people who are getting COVID because we can't afford tests to everybody, and so that number is based on number of tests that are proven positive, and the number is growing quite obviously because we are affording more tests. But also the number is growing because the virus is spreading much more rapidly than it was, say, a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Okay, so that's the thing. And, the second part of that is, people, countries going into national lockdowns.
Yeah.
I will stand here and raise my hand and say I'm probably wrong. but we'll have to watch the space with regards to the UK. I felt that more often than not, this would probably be a regional thing, and in the UK it may well still be a regional lockdown. But France, and I'm led to believe Germany, have gone down the path of having a national lockdown now, for at least until November. So this is the way that things are transpiring quite right now. We'll just have to see what happens with the UK regards to a tier 4. I think that's the other thing that's been discussed and postulated.
You mean after tier 3, you got a tier 4?
Possibly. I mean, that's the discussions right now. So this is something that we just have to watch this space. I think the UK is desperately trying to avoid a national lockdown. That's easy to see. That's why we've not entered it. And this regional lockdown is something that they're trying to sort of emulate across different pockets and populations across the UK. But I don't know that SAGE is the advisors are quite happy with that particular mode of attack, especially with regards to tier 3. There's been discussions that it may well not be enough, but we'll just have to see. I'm hopeful that we don't enter a lockdown for the reasons we'll probably touch on again, but that essentially mean that there's a shutdown of everything really. But that being said, there has been discussion about what things would not be locked down in particular areas should there be a national lockdown, and I think schools have to remain open in one shape or form. But again, that's just my speculative thought.
The whole thing about this lockdown thing, I mean, the WHO had said governments or countries should not use lockdown as a way to deal with the whole thing, but then they didn't say you can't use it. So I guess maybe things have reached a crisis proportion now as the figures are climbing. The death is increasing, I understand as well. One of the things that we never seem to have, and I know many people ask this question, is why we're not getting some of the figures as to other deaths from other sicknesses, cancer, cold, and all those things, to sort of get a sort of balance. But of course, they don't have to say that to us. They don't have to deal with what is it. Keisha, I know your position, but no, I'm not going to say I know your position, because I would have said you don't have to come on the show since we know your position. We'll just press a button and to come and say, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. But really and truly, I mean, what's your take on this? I mean, as it unfolds.
Well, I mean, I suppose where we are, again, it's not surprising. We expected, or we were told a few months back, that we were going to have a second wave. And what is interesting is that the second wave is coming from the north, isn't it? Rather, I think that the first time the COVID pandemic started, it came more from London, and then it picked up and then it spread throughout the UK. But I think it's the other way around. I don't know if David wanted to comment on that, but I just find that quite interesting. But in terms of what I'm observing at the moment is, I really don't understand, because we're in a time where everybody, I believe, has full knowledge as to how we can contract the virus. So I think everyone is fully informed at this stage. So, yeah. I don't. It's almost like it's inevitable, because it's not like there's lack of knowledge. Everybody in the UK, I would have thought, is fully informed as to what is the cause of the virus, why are we contracting, and so on, and even the measures that they need to do to mitigate it. But yet we're still seeing the rise in this virus. So it is quite interesting. Again, it's where we are. There's not much we can do besides actually follow the measures. But you have to ask yourself, are the measures actually working? If people are fully informed, why are we here? Why are we still at this place? And it's quite interesting, because I know David said that he doesn't, agree with the full lockdown. But I suppose, given that you have, I believe it was Germany who's going to do a lockdown, a full lockdown for at least 1 month time. I think a few weeks ago there were conversation around, a short break or a circuit breaker measures. And I think it's only inevitable. I think it's only a matter of time, maybe December, unfortunately, maybe, that this is going to happen in the UK again, because I don't particularly want it in December because of Christmas period. But I believe we're looking at that at this stage.
I mean, Keisha, Keima, we'll come to you, but West Yorkshire is to be placed under 3 COVID restrictions from Monday, the strictest level of rules. I guess there's going to be a lot of parties this weekend. I don't know why they always say that, because they say if it's Monday, people are just going to kill themselves on our parties Saturday, Sunday until they shut down. Home to estimated 2.3 million. David, you live close outside, don't you?
I'm in Yorkshire, yes, but not West Yorkshire.
Right. So is it? It's
a large region. So geographically, I can't tell you the landmass, but it's a huge region. What I do know is it's large because I had to travel. It could take me 2 hours to get to work some days by a car. But I think the point here is the question was whether or not it's coming from north to south or south to north. I think a lot of this depends on the testing and who's being tested, and you know, I would be hesitant saying that there aren't more cases in certain places. Because it really is governed by the number of tests that have been undertaken and the want, the desire and passion for somebody to have those tests as well. But at the same time, I do think looking at regional cases is probably the way forward, particularly if people are not crossing the divide and moving from city to city as much because of the current predicament that we face. I must go on to say that Germany is going through a soft national lockdown for what that means. So, you know, we'll just have to watch the space if that gives rise to a reduction in the numbers. I would hope so, because obviously I don't want any place having an increase in numbers, quite obviously. But yeah, in terms of regional variations, there is going to be that. There are going to be pockets of people who would mix more so than others. And that's why I do think that a regional kind of picture is a way forward, because if you've got a place whereby people don't really mix and mingle very much anyway, they're naturally socially distancing, then does that place, and this is a question to ask, does that place need to have a nationalized or be part of a nationalized lockdown? And I can't answer that, but I don't think for me it makes that particular sense, but we'll have to see.
One of the things also on Keima is that the government promised further financial package of more than 9.3 million for the region, but I just use that as an example to pinpoint to these financial packages. It is like they're now earmarking packages for different areas. Furlough is finished now, I think, isn't it?
31st.
I'm sorry?
It finishes on the 31st.
Finishes on the 31st. Can the government manage, and at the same time with the pressure like for Marcus Rashford for student meals? Or is it that when we see Marcus Rashford thing, we'll come on to it later, is it that the country and people are now chipping in? Is it like the government need to be given a break?
I think. Go on. Sorry.
Keima, yeah.
For me, my question is whether we've lost control completely, and whether there is a chance whether we'll be able to see the end of the tunnel at some point, because we've had the lockdown before, and now we have different regions doing their own thing. The problem that we constantly have now, for example, we have to have a package for Manchester, a package for Yorkshire, and every region now wants a package. The question is, we are all meant to be in this together. And so some parts aren't going to be benefiting from all of these different packages. And we all know that the government does not have infinite amount of funds. You constantly have to borrow money in order for us to continue to sustain the economy. And so you mentioned about Marcus Rashford. I think that's a very political move in itself from the government for not actually listening to what the country is saying. Yes, you know, it's not a really good political position to be in, to deny free school meal, regardless of what angle you are, whether you're Labour, Conservative, whatever position you are. Ultimately, if somebody is hungry, a child is hungry, you feed them. And I think that's naturally what the position should be. But of course, the government also has to battle with the idea that, you know, where would it all stop? Because ultimately, you're supposed to be the councils that has a legal representative, legal right to look after the children, right? And where this is now coming up to central government, all those MPs are trying to say no, we should be doing this. But I think they didn't really gauge the political mood correctly at that point. And so it's going to go on. I think it's it's not a very good position for the government to be in, because of course it's seen as very weak at the moment, because all these regional mayors are demanding different things. London wants something different, Manchester wants something different, Yorkshire wants something different, and it doesn't really bode well on a whole when you look at where we are as a country, whether we're moving forward and whether we're having really control of where the virus is going.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you the question, and thanks for those on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. But what's your take on the matter? What do you think about the lockdown, the imminent lockdown? Are you looking forward to it? Are you looking forward to Christmas with Zoom? I think that's what I say, Christmas with Zoom. People making sure that they stay at their family home before they get locked out. Police are going to be patrolling areas and breaking up parties. David, so mash down that lie, David. No more of that.
I'm trying. I respect the law, in any case. But I just wanted to really touch on one point. I don't know if we've already picked it up. It was a news story back in September about money, and it's because you raised a question about money. 3.5 billion misappropriately given to possible fraudsters in regards to the furlough scheme. And this news story is from sort of BBC back in September. 3.5 billion. That's a lot of money that's just gone to people inappropriately through the furlough scheme and claimed by people inappropriately. That's what the estimate is that's been lost. So I don't think that the government has an infinite pot of money. Quite obviously, they don't. And quite obviously, going back to the question about kids, they need to be fed. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But what I'm making reference to really when I talk about money here is how much money can be paid to support us all through this terrible crisis. And I don't know how best that is afforded to us. Quite obviously, there's been a period of time where we've had to tighten the purse strings and account for that money through current government. So you would hope that there is some finance at least to be able to stabilize us all. But I don't think that is obviously finite, and there's a lot of money that has been wasted inappropriately.
David, I stay with you. Sorry, unless somebody want to pick up something there.
No, I was just going to say, in terms of what the government spent alone in September, it's about 36 billion alone in September. That's about 28 billion more than what they spent last year, September. So that tells you in itself where we are in terms of the amount of money that the government's having to spend. But the problem for now, it's okay for most people that the government is doing that, but in the long run, it's how the government is going to claim that money back, either to tax, VAT, or something to do with our pension funds or something. So we could see this not going to be a really very difficult political position for any government, whether it's a Conservative or Labour government, having to find that money to pay that money back somehow.
David, sorry.
SYLBOURNE, is only one thing I want to add following Keima's comment. Then she touched on the point that this government seems to have lost control. So my question then is, if the government has lost control in a crisis, then this whole country is in a predicament, isn't it? Because where do we go from here when the government who should be leading us is not leading, or is not in a position to lead? So we're looking at a possible catastrophe.
Well, it seems like it's a frustrated issue. It seems like they're frustrated in a way. It's very interesting what in America. Sorry, I think I'm losing something here. It seemed like in America, and I'm not going to support any particular president, but America,
right?
America is on this quest whereby they are saying we can't afford this lockdown. This is just crazy. This lockdown. We have to open up and manage things. I've always been saying, and I said it on my show last night, the late one. When you break a horse, they always say when you break a horse, and I'm not a horse rider, but watching cowboys you have to go through that process beyond to the point where you believe that it's impossible. And I believe that somehow, Butcher Banton said it in a certain way, but not in the way how he said it is right. But how long can we continue this with it is going to be having some devastating economic impact upon people, upon their lives, whereby if they don't die by COVID, they're going to die by starvation. And if we don't die by starvation, we're going to die by mental health. And people are going to go crazy. And people are locked in. And people getting frustrated. And the emotions and everything is going mad. So therefore, it's like you need to go through the process. You got to kick over and then see what is on the other side. We haven't seen what is on the other side, David.
We haven't, and it's difficult to see what's on the other side without living through the experience. And I'm not saying that that's definitely what we need to do, but what I have always said is we're going to have to find novel ways of trying to cope with this virus that doesn't revolve around having national lockdowns, but also revolve around the idea that we're going to have a all-saving vaccination, because it's come out that that's potentially not going to be the complete way forward. We're going to have to be able to live with this and find ways of maneuvering. And my approach, you touched on the finance already, but my approach has always been that of health. You talked about what are the stats for other health conditions, and again, my worry, fear, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, my mental health is not going great at the moment with regards to the thought of those patients who are sat out there with other conditions, not coming into hospital, not being able, and even if they want to come into hospital, not being able to go into hospital because their care that we can provide is not the same as it was previously. And so that's my worry. As a health professional, that's my worry, that we can't carry out the tasks that we would normally do on a daily basis because of COVID.
And I've heard as well that they're saying that lots of, I think it's cancer patients or whatever, they're having a backlog of this. So
that's
it is
correct.
These impact all over the place, which is a bit. They said the fixing of the COVID by the lockdown is creating another.
Yes, the indirect effect of COVID is that it's having a direct effect on other particular services like cancer that you mentioned, or other elective surgeries. In some particular regions, Leeds has just come in that regard. Leeds, unfortunately, has succumbed to that, and they've had to have some cancellation of the elective procedures because of the effect of COVID. It's causing a big problem in our communities, big problem in our societies, and we need to find ways of navigating that to allow us to have two streams to effectively treat those people who have COVID effectively, and also treat those people who have their underlying health conditions in an effective manner.
And Keisha, it goes straight to you. It seems like the government don't have any control. They're not on control. They're out of control.
No,
I mean, government is out of control, isn't it? And it's like lockdown is a way whereby let's take control.
But the people have different ways of managing things, okay? And I suppose there's some people who could multitask. And what is happening here, I guess the government has taken the approach that they're going to look at the economy, education, the health crisis in one, right? Which means that what they really should have been doing is actually have different resources, different experts across the table looking at all three dimensional issues at one time. Okay, we're at the place where, as Keima rightly says, and based on my observation, they've lost control because they're trying to manage everything at once. And clearly this seems to be coming out of their hands and falling through the cracks, right? My approach has always been, keep repeating myself, but I feel like my approach is just deal with one issue at a time. Before you could start looking at rehabilitation or healing an individual, you have to deal with the sickness or the thing that actually causing them significant pain or harm at the time. And I personally feel that right now the crisis that we're in is that it fundamentally is the health of the nation. That should be the main fundamental factor. What are we putting in place to manage that crisis, the health crisis, and then we could deal with the what comes from it, the residue from it, which is of course Keima pointed around the economic side of the country. I don't believe that this idea of actually doing several things at once, or multitasking, or dealing with several different issues at once is actually working. And I think that is why we are in this crisis at the moment. I think we need to find a way through, and the only how we could find a way through is somebody to you need a health person, somebody who's actually an expert in the health field to actually take back control of the issue regarding the health of the nation, sort that out first, and say, right, let's go back to Rishi to sort the economic part side of it afterwards. But right now, the country is in crisis. Fundamentally, it's the health of the nation. That's how I think we should be looking at it. But that's me. I am not
David, you know what Keisha
Boris advisor.
David, you know what Keisha said? It sounds like you need to have a control of the virus, and nobody has
first
a virus, isn't it?
Well, it's really looking at the whole situation holistically, and it's what I should just said, which is, yes, this virus is here. The virus is going to be here for a long period of time, but let's not forget that there are other health conditions out there. And I think by having somebody like Keisha has just stipulated, somebody from a health background, they would understand that. They would be able to run with the two streams, run with the idea of, okay, we've got this prevalent virus. It's causing undue harm. Oh, sorry, it's causing harm. What do we do for the nation's sake? What's the plan of attack, so to speak? But also, let's not forget other health conditions and how do we task that. Those are the two streams that need to be adhered to moving forward. The minute you stop multitasking, and again, I like the word multitasking there. I'm not the greatest multitasker, but I like the word tasking, because you can't forget about one. You've got to lead with both. You've got to think about the health of the nation holistically. You can't just say, well, okay, let's just concentrate on COVID and the effects of COVID and the finances that come with that. It's really got to be everything inclusive, the whole nation. Education we touched on as well.
Yeah. Keima, if you say something before I touch on to what someone said, before we quickly move on to Jeremy Corbyn. Any last word, Keima, on COVID?
Yeah, in terms of where we are, I think we did mention the furlough scheme comes to an end this week, but Fuichi has brought out the job retention scheme as well, which runs as well following on from the furlough scheme. And this is also to support businesses to have jobs, secure jobs for individuals to keep employed, because of course there's going to be there's going to be quite a few people out of work for the next couple of weeks as a result, made redundant as a result of the end of this furlough scheme. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done in terms of creating new jobs. Of course, we know a lot of sectors are suffering heavily at the moment, retail sector being one of them. And of course, that's what the new jobs retention scheme is about. So we'll see how it goes, but we're going to have to keep an eye and hope and fingers crossed that not too many people lose their jobs.
Yes. Well, let's hear what Lorna says. Lorna says she's coming into the UK for Christmas, but it won't be business as usual. Spending the holiday with my family and 14 days in quarantine. I just added that one, Lorna. Is it 14 days now from Jamaica, if anything? And you know what is it? I guess protocol has to be adhered. Apparently, it's only 6 to a household. At the moment, Northampton is not on full lockdown. I was watching a little clip. I was trying to get it with friends when 6 of them were in the house and the door knocked and they're all looking at each other. But they were counting each other and say, hey, it's a minute, who is that at the door? But it was nothing to do with COVID, but it fitted so appropriately, where people are now worried about if there's 7 or 8 or so, if they're in a company, and people are now paranoid, and then the police is going to start coming and knock on the door and say, I understand that you're 7. And the person is going to say, well, actually, you can't come in because you're going to make it 8. So stay away.
Sylbourne, you know what? I saw a post today. Yesterday, actually. I saw a post which I found very interesting. And the person said what they're going to do. They're going to set up a company, and the company will be registered at the household address.
Yeah.
And if it's a company, clearly you can employ you'll employ a number of employees, more than 6, obviously, and they all can actually come to the work address, which of course is your home address. And so what he's going to do is recruit his family members, so they're all registered under the company as employees for the company, and invite them around for Christmas for dinner. So if the police was to knock, they're all employees working at the registered company address.
Okay. I think the world thing with COVID, it is creating a level of ingenuity between people.
Yes,
very creative, and it's fantastic, you know. But let's go on to Jeremy Corbyn being suspended. I mean, that's shocking, isn't it? A former member of parliament, member of parliament still, former leader, being suspended. Anyone familiar with what's going on there? You know.
Well, Sylbourne, I talked about going with the flow in regards to prostate cancer. Jeremy Corbyn has never really gone with the flow. He's always gone against. I am a little bit, I think it's a little bit dismayed that he didn't apologize for his comments. I think he's obviously acutely aware of what he said and why he said it. And I don't think it was right for him to say. I'm just saying he should have apologized, but he's never really apologized very well during his tenure. And it is regrettable that he has been, suspended by the Labour Party. He's done a lot of good things as a community leader, and I think that he's been a proponent of many a good project. But I do think it's regrettable that he decided to have his comments and then stick by them and not apologize, especially in the face of anti-Semitism. And I think that's pretty much it. I think what I would have just said is just keep your mouth closed, carry on, and not comment. If you've got comments like that to be said, then you don't need to comment. You don't need to say them. But he obviously decided he wanted to. He's reached a time in his political career where he just probably doesn't. I'm not speaking on his behalf, but probably doesn't really care so much by what he says and whosoever is offended, etc. But I don't think it was right. That's all I will say. And that matter, in my personal belief, I don't think it was right in what he said. I think he just should have offered an apology.
But what it says is that Labour has suspended Jeremy Corbyn from the party over his reactions to a highly critical report on anti-Semitism. Human rights watchdog Labour found Labour responsible for unlawful harassment and discrimination during Mr. Corbyn's years. But he said later the scale of anti-Semitism within Labour had been dramatically overstated by opponents. Now, of course, it's like a bloodbath now there. I mean, Keisha, you're one of the Labour fans. I don't know if you have any comments.
No, I am apolitical. I should probably just put it out there. Apolitical? Is that still a concept one can use where you don't really affiliate to a party, you just vote based on policies?
Yeah, I think so.
That is what I'm trying to say. I'm not conservative, not Labour, not Lib Dem. I'm just,
you're balanced.
I'm one of the intelligent, I know, group of people.
So everybody is involved with a political and in a particular way there.
So look at the policy on the day of the election and decide which is best for the community and their household. So that's basically how I think one should really vote. But there are some people who actually have these allegiance. Doesn't matter what the police, the politics of at the time or the political party's views, they're going to just keep towing the line. Which leads me to my point regarding Jeremy Corbyn. I don't really understand how that works, because if he is clearly, at one point the political leader, he says something. Now, is it whatever he says automatically means that it's the Labour Party view, or it's actually his opinion? At what stage do we can decipher which is actually his opinion or a representation of the Labour Party, which is what I'm trying to work out. I don't understand. He's been suspended, but isn't it his matter of opinion, or is it a reflection of the Labour Party? Or you can't, once you're a member of a party, you can't really distinguish the two anymore. Is that how it works?
Well, I think with him in particular, what he said was deemed to be unlawful, and hence the reason why I believe Harriet Harman, one of the chairperson of the Human Rights Committee, actually did mention that was right for him to be suspended. Of course, he has his political fans, allegiance, and John McDonnell, who was actually his deputy leader at the time, who actually doesn't feel that this is necessary. It's just being blown over the top. The issue here is that he hasn't apologized, and what he said, he wouldn't retract what he said at all. He stand by what he says, and he said he's been committed to the Labour Party since he's 16 years old, and that's not going to be changing, and that he's a fighter for anti-racism, anti-Semitism, and that's going to continue. The issue that we have here is that, of course, he's been suspended from the party, and of course that been taking away the whip as well. So that means that he is technically an independent in the party. So we'll see where that goes, but ultimately, he still has a huge allegiance of PANs. Whether this will split the party going forward is something to keep an eye on. But I think if you look on the wider scale of thing and where we're going, Keir Starmer is seen as the lead or political leader, or the favorite now ahead of Boris Johnson in this country. He needs to stabilize the party. The party needs to be cleansed, if you want to put it that way. And the anti-Semitism stigma has been holding the Labour Party back for some time. And doing this, I think, will present a view to the nation that, Labour is taking anti-Semitism very, very seriously. And that is not something that they want to take to the next election. So I think if you think about it from a strategic point of view and legally, I can understand why they made a decision for Jeremy Corbyn to be suspended.
Yes. So therefore, as we're looking at it, is that there's going to be, as I say, some sort of bloodbath within the faction, within the Labour Party now, infighting. But Sturman said from day one that he wanted to have zero tolerance, and I think he's showing his hand in a very powerful way. So I don't know. Any last word on that? We wish Jeremy all the best. He loves making honey and jam and stuff like that. So if you have some honey and jam.
I actually don't think there'll be very much sort of fighting within the party as a fallout of this. I think he said what he said now, and I think that'll just be it. As you've quite rightly said, the way that the party is being led by Starmer currently, he's kind of really tried to squash down any suggestion that kind of idea is tolerated. So I think the zero tolerance on his behalf from Starmer. Yes, this has come out today, but I think it's just going to be a small news story, and I don't think there's going to be very much reflection. He's been banned. That's just it. Move on.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, one of the key topics these last days, which we have been talking about, and I don't know if you guys are going to be around next week, but one of the big things next week is November the 3rd, and November the 3rd is a fantastic day because it is not the election day; it is the birthday of a friend of mine named Charles Kieran. He said, "Silburn, let us people know that it is not about the election. It's about my birthday, Charles Kieran, a good friend of mine. But 2020, the election which is right before us, who do you think is going to win? What is it looking like now?" Anybody want to jump in the ship there? I mean, listen, I can say that I love elections and I love American stuff. I love the fanfare, I love the excitement. And I'm just eating it up, watching Biden with nobody was listening to him. I'm watching Kamala Harris giving that laugh when she asks a hard question. when she don't know what to answer. And Trump just on the roll saying, yeah, like a rock star. I don't know if that shows my any form of thinking, but Biden is leading in the polls. It seems a bit similar to what happened with Hillary Clinton. But the interesting thing which has been happening a few days, and even today, was that Twitter, Facebook, and I think Google or so was called before the Senate, and they were grilled. The guy that owned Google, man, you should see his beard. His beard is almost to the ground, like a dreadlocks guy, But the point about it is that you are seeing lots of censoring going on of information. So the left is having a honeymoon period whereby there's no sort of critique of Biden in regards to some of these issues regarding his son. And with Trump, he's getting the critique as much as possible. But it's exciting. I don't know what you guys think about it, the election.
Well, I mean, CNN came out today and last couple of days and saying they're actually deliberately censoring some of the things that coming out of the Trump campaign because they feel that they're inaccurate. And there's certain things, of course, even in the last debate, you will see that a lot of the posters were saying some of the things that Trump has been saying is false and misleading. And so that's why some of the main media giants are trying to say they're going to censor some of the things that's been coming out of the Trump campaign. But equally, Trump is saying, well, they should be going after Biden, particularly about his connections with his son and Ukraine and all of that. But even that, it's not fully convincing in some areas that if there's any truth in all of that. And so, I mean, the big giants, Trump liked to say the big tech giants is after him, and that's one of the areas that he's fighting against. But in terms of the who's going to win the election, it's a tight one. Although some of the polls are saying that I believe Joe Biden is in the lead. He might win the popular votes. This is the same thing that happened to Hillary, but it's the margins, the key bellwether areas, in particular Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Florida, those areas that they need to really win. And you could see if just based on Trump crowd sizes, he's really back and forth through those areas, trying to get as many vote as possible. So it's going to be a really difficult one. I wouldn't call it like CNN did the last time, because I'm not quite sure how is it going to go, because Trump is out there on the campaign trail as if it's like he's going to win it all.
Keisha?
Well, based on my understanding, I don't think we will know the outcome on the day itself, the November 3rd. You're probably going to have to work a day after. I don't know how many days later we have to wait to get the outcome. But I don't think, even though people are looking forward to the day itself, we're not going to get the outcome on that particular day, unless, of course, it's a landslide victory. So it's not particularly the day as such. It's probably the day after we need to focus on. Right. And then another thing as well, what I found interesting is what Trump said in one of his speeches last week. And he says, running against him, which as in Biden, he put so much pressure because I'm running against the worst in history of presidential. And now if I lose, can you imagine? And this is what he said last. Can you imagine if I lose, I will have lost the worst candidate. I would have lost to the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics. If I lose, what do I do? I'd rather run against somebody who's extraordinarily talented. At least that way I know I can go and lead, right? Lead my life. So at least what Trump is it proud? I don't know if he's arrogant, maybe bold. He is certain that he is running against the worst person in the history of presidential race, and therefore it is almost shocking if he was to lose. So this is, it's almost like watching a boxing match, and you're preparing yourself for a boxing match, and then you have all these two candidates, two opponents coming together, and there's as normally it's to both of them. I say things that actually to hype up the game or to hype up the sport. Unfortunately, you're only hearing it from Trump at the moment, but and he's doing his best.
And David, your take on it?
Yeah, my take is I think I'm standing with what I felt last week, which is I think that Biden wins. I think a lot has come to transpire the effects that Trump will not win this election. With regards to the emails and things, I think if Hillary hadn't have happened, then there may well be more emphasis on this whole email thing with Biden's son. The fact is that there's very limited grounds for the authenticity of these emails, and there's not very much time to sort of build that momentum either. That's why there's a lot of hesitancy in reporting this as something that is factual. And so I think Hillary Clinton has played a part in this election, believe it or not, in regards to how this particular news story will transpire for the next 6 days or 5 or 6 days now. The other thing to be said is I think there's been a lot of assistance by President Obama in this election, helping his old mate Joe out, and I think that's helped as well. But COVID is the big issue here, and you just have to look across the CNN feeds to show the numbers of people who have the tested positive, the cases, the people admitted to hospitals, the deaths, etc. They're even reporting on worldwide COVID figures in CNN, and I think that feeds an idea that this has been poorly handled by President Trump, and with his idea and approach to say, essentially masks are not particularly necessary, and I'm postulating there, but that's essentially what you're seeing from President Trump. Then I don't think that really serves great favor in his camp, and I think that's you may well be causing a little bit more division there, but people, it doesn't help with the fear and worry that people will have, that Americans will have at this moment in time. So I think things are pointing in the direction of Biden. Whether people would say that's fortuitous because of COVID is one approach to that idea, but there's no doubt in my mind that things are not working in Trump's favor. COVID being the biggest element of them all.
Yeah. What about race issue? Will that be a key factor there? Because there's a recent killing again, a couple of recent killing, and there's a major demonstrations again. Do you believe race will play a major factor? Because people are actually saying, both of them are racist, but which one is the more racist? And they've been playing a lot of tapes of Biden years ago when he said he doesn't want his children to grow up in a jungle, and then Kamala Harris with the whole thing with the with super predators and all those sort of things. Is race going to make a difference? Well, nobody's talking about policies. I keep saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's talking about policies. What are the policies?
I think race will play a small part. I think COVID is the biggest. Race will play a small part because, as you said there, you could argue from both sides there. But at the end of the day, the commander-in-chief was in charge at this moment in time when these events are occurring. And yes, you can look at historical context of Joe Biden as well. But so, for me, that kind of, if anything, it balances, at worst, it balances things out between the two of them. So COVID is the biggest thing. No, mark my words. I think if COVID wasn't here, we would be having a different discussion entirely. But COVID is definitely not working in Trump's favor. I don't know what Trump did to get COVID into the world, but it's really not working for him.
Well, he called it the Chinese virus, China virus.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he did.
Keima?
I think with Trump, he's on his campaigning trail anyway. He's talking more positively about turning the corner, he says, when it comes to the virus. And there's a vaccination. We should have a vaccination by the end of the year. So he's committed to that. He's promising people that that's going to happen. And he's also saying that, the Democrats are being doom and gloom and negative and not having a positive spin, I suppose, on the whole election campaign when it comes to COVID. But when it comes to race in particular, this is it's a very interesting one because Latinos at the moment seem to be supporting more Trump rather than Biden. Biden has a lot of work to do when it comes with Latinos, and also when it comes to Black and ethnic minorities. You see, we talked about last week a lot of these celebrities in particular, some of them are coming out and saying they're supporting Trump, but there's some of them that are very silent in their views. And there's one article that came out last week that says nearly 50% of Black and ethnic Black people intend to vote for Trump as well. I don't know how true is that, but that should be worrying for the Democrats because a lot of the time they could always rely on the Black vote. So race will play a very, very interesting part of it, but also women will play an interesting part as well. At the moment, you see Biden is attracting more and more women to his party, but Trump is not letting that slide. He's also having a lot of these female candidates. So his female supporters out in the campaign. We saw the First Lady out today with him supporting and trying to get more women to the polls as well. So it's a tight battle, but I think race, of course, is going to play a big part of it.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll see how that unfolds eventually in a few days, because I believe we won't be back here. When is it? November the 3rd. Oh, that's Tuesday. So I guess when we're back here next, anybody want to put a wager in?
No. Sorry?
Anybody want to put a wager? I think I got 5p.
You're going all out there. Okay. I know who I think is going to win. I think it's going to be Biden, as I said. Wager wise, I don't know what kind of wager can we put down here.
I don't know. I have no idea.
The next coffee is on me for everybody when we finally get out of lockdown. Regardless of who wins, I'll buy the next coffee. But the fact is, I think Biden's going to win.
Okay.
Tell you what, I'll buy two
I think
coffees.
you're going to have to
Trump
get me
wins.
coffee latte then, because I don't think Biden's got this one. I think.
Ooh.
No, I don't, because I mean, one, mainly because it's unlikely that a current president will actually lose his seat second term. So statistics, based on history, it's more likely that the current president will win the second seat. So that's it. And also, I would have thought when it comes to the pandemic, there would be a lot more outrage in America. And I'm not seeing the level of outrage that I would have expected. So it seems as if a lot of Americans, and I might be wrong because obviously I don't live there, they're just dismissing it or they're setting it aside. And because I don't really see the law or the grandeur about the whole thing, or the great as if it's a massive issue or concern to them.
Yes.
I don't really think that's going to impact the decision on the day itself.
Both great points. Yeah.
Yes. And
well, for me, I think it'll come down to three areas: Florida, Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, and those will be the key areas that I think should be focused on. And I think Trump will probably win. He will probably win Florida. And a lot of times, if you win Florida, they say you normally win the election.
Yeah.
And so Biden, I think, will win the popular vote, but I think those key areas might swing to Trump, which means that he will probably win the election.
So I guess
2-1 Trump. Okay, 2-1 Trump. What does SYLBOURNE say?
No. So I guess we are moving towards the eradication of the electoral college eventually, if that happens, because that's what everybody's pointing towards. Yeah. For me, I believe that when the government loses, the government wins. When the president loses, the president wins. So therefore, whosoever is the president will win.
You're sitting on the bench. You need to call it.
He sounds quite apolitical, doesn't he?
So I know. I'm thinking, what are you saying, SYLBOURNE? Is it Trump or Biden? Say what it is.
If Trump loses, the president win, which is Biden become the president. So therefore, the president will always win, and the presidency of America.
Oh, come on, SYLBOURne.
Honestly, well, personally speaking, I don't watch polls. I go by gut instincts.
And what's your gut says?
My gut instinct was Obama at that time. My gut instinct was Trump that time. My gut instinct again is Trump this time. Okay. And with David Cameron, it was my gut instinct, not just because I was conservative, but it was my gut instinct because conservatives, Republicans, never like to tell their views to polls because they don't like the attack and they don't like the people attacking them. So they always keep quiet and they go for this moment. There's this precious moment that people go for. When they go behind the polling booth, they are peace with themselves and they make that mark. That's what they do.
I completely agree with you because I remember
election. And you're about to go out, lay yourself to rest. I'm at peace with myself. I've done everything I can.
But no, I totally agree with SYLBOURNE there because I remember when we were campaigning for David Cameron. I don't know if you remember, but I just find it was very quiet. People weren't really talking. People weren't really saying which way they were going to vote.
Yeah.
But there was always, if you on the train, people smile at you because I had obviously a conservative T-shirt. Oh, they smile at you. So you had the optimism that it's just going to be a really, really good election. But when you talk to people, they weren't telling you where they're going to vote, but you could see the little nods and the smiles and the
I remember one time on a campaign trail, and I'll give you two examples. Me and this guy, Jamaican guy, we knock on the lady's door and we're talking to her children outside, and we're conservative. And then the lady inside there said, "Is who that?" And the person, some conservative person, "Shut the door." and then another occasion, another lady said, "I don't understand this. Two black Jamaican man at my door talking about, come inside, let me talk to him. We need to talk to him." And then I never forget another time going to a door and this black guy coming out and I'm going like this. Oh, here we go again. Let me prepare myself. And he said, "Hey man, cool man, I'm conservative, man." I said, "Oh, cool." And I started speaking things. And then I realized upon knocking on doors and speaking to people, it doesn't reflect what the general ethos is saying. When you're actively knocking on doors, I started to see something different. And that is why I realized that conservatives are not the type that you see go out and demonstrate and make noise. They just go about their business, they go to their work, and they go and vote, especially when it rains.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a typical joke, isn't it? When it's rain, it's good for conservative because they all have cars, but that's just a joke.
It's a joke. Well, listen. On that note, guys. Let me just.
David didn't get it.
No, I got it. But I was just reflecting. I was thinking before you have the segue. The other thing that we've not talked on though is, or spoken about. Sorry, talked on doesn't make any sense. Spoken about is the record number of people who have already voted.
70 million.
Right. So whose camp does that
70 million?
For? Yes, 75. I think it is. 75 million.
That's a high turnout.
I think that would bode better.
Sorry,
it would be the highest turnout. It will be the highest turnout ever. But I think that would bode well for the Democrats.
That's my
really?
point, right?
It's a higher
So
tone, yeah.
that was the point I was trying to get to. I think for me that's a crucial factor. You know, looking at the number of the turnout percentage, it's been about 55%, 52%, 54% for the past couple of years. It's not been at 60% for a good number of years, and so you know, high turnout is if it is to be expected, is going to really shift the camp and focus. So I think I've kept my latte. I'll expect my latte from you guys in 5 or 6 days time, and I'll be smiling from ear to ear like this.
You think so? You think America will make us proud then? The Americans might do it this one time.
Listen, I think Sylbourne's recorded this segment and he's going to be playing this back to say I told you so. But okay, we'll see.
Well, I like somebody said, am I going to do a show that night and call it like what I did the Jamaican government election, when I call it at that night before Cliff Hughes in Jamaica. I think I'll already call it, but guess what? Nothing is wrong. I accept this point otherwise. Nothing is wrong if I'm wrong. I always say I'm only human. You know what I mean? And but I want to touch on this. I want to touch on this point briefly because I noticed this this gentleman here, which is BIM. And it is very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. But he's a conservative MP, and he said, "Why do liberals have such low expectation for black people like me?" He said the left hypocrisy and racial equality is causing profound damage. And he said there are some pretty distasteful comments about me on Facebook. They say I found myself described as a black boy who, because I went to Oxford, a posh uni, I live in an expensive village, who's somebody whose life bears no bloody resemblance of black kids growing up in the inner city. What's your take on that? I mean, do you see like there is an attack on black conservatives? I said it. I shouldn't have said it. Conservatives who happen to be black.
I think there.
I think this is. Go on, David. I think David should go first. Go on.
Yeah, sorry. I think there is, and I don't think that's fair. I've always said, to Stillborn, to anybody who would ask me the question, we should be represented all over. If you are conservative, if you're liberal, if you are whatever, and you have strong political positions, then and you want to enter a particular political party, then do so. Because without being in a particular political party, you're not going to emphasize to achieve any change within that party in itself. And bringing that change is only really going to work if you have people within a particular organization. Now, if that organization, for example, was I'm going to use different tact here, but if it was practicing homophobia, for example, then I don't think you really want to be part of that organization as a representative for a particular community. Then that's a different thing entirely. Quite obviously, you don't want to be in a party that would propose that as a way forward. But as far as I can see things, with respect to the political setup in this particular country, there are two major political parties with another party as well. But I don't see that you can't have people across the board in any particular political party. Probably want to exclude the BNP there from a personal perspective, but that's the point I'm trying to make. And so not to support black people within the Conservative Party, I got it the right way around there, didn't I? So, well, black people within the Conservative Party, I think is a poor show. To attack them, I think is poor. To sort of put them out to dry, I think is poor. We all can have a joke and share a joke about certain things from a political point of view. That's fine. We do that with other sort of sectors of society. But at the same time, to knock somebody down because they're part of a political party that is a leading political party, the government is formed through a conservative majority. To not want black people part of that, to me, makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Keisha, what's your take on that?
Keisha, you want to go first?
I don't know where to start with our friend. First and foremost, I think I was hoping that maybe you and Sylbourne could start to, because you might need to break down when he said liberals. I suppose he's referring to anybody who are like Labour and Lib Dems, right? Are those group of people?
Yes.
I can set a stage for argument. Let's go to America and look at what happened with 50 Cent and what happened with Ice Cube. it was felt that they deviated from the norm. 50 Cent girlfriend, ex-girlfriend said, I had to remind him that he's black. Because how dare he actually go and talk to Trump camp? Ice Cube is deemed to be, hey, you left the camp as well. So now they're getting attacked from the liberal left because they actually deviate. That's not how you should be. So people are now looking at this and say, hang on a second, is this another form of control? Another form of control where a lot of liberals are actually white people, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of liberals actually, most of those persons demonstrating out there for Black Lives Matters now, the black people are looking beside them and seeing all these white kids, rich white kids now. There are liberal left who are saying they want to still take control of that narrative. And that is why the Democrats in America is having a problem with black people, because they feel like they're taking it for granted and that they're controlled. They're on this plantation. So therefore, for a black person to say that I'm conservative, how dare you move away from that? How dare you step on that? How dare you go into the party of Margaret Thatcher? And David said the point. How can you then change things if you don't be a part of everything? The Jews have done it. The Asians have done it. They're involved in all different sectors. That doesn't mean to say conform. You can be in there to try to transform. It may take a while, but at least you're setting the stage. So I understand where BIM is coming from.
To that point.
And when sometimes, like he said, white.
Yeah. So on that point, I agree with to a certain extent to what he's saying. I agree with that. You know, if a black person says that they're conservative, I have seen for myself, particularly as my sister campaigned as a conservative for many years, I've seen how she's been labeled and certain comments that's not pleasant has been stated about her. So and that's because of her political views, right? So I accept that. But what I don't really seem to understand is that, he went further, and I think it became more about himself as, oh, they don't like me, or they're saying these negative things about me because I went to Oxford University. That I'm not, I never went to, I never grew up in the inner city, or I'm educated in this place. So it becomes more. So I slightly struggle to see where he was coming from, because I don't really think that people generally, as in liberals, and I'm not speaking for liberals, but people generally in the UK have a problem with a black person rising to the top and going to Oxford University. I don't really think that people will look down or criticize somebody who actually had that great aspiration.
I think it is when they become a member of a particular party.
And I think that's what I think the problem is. But I think it becomes more self-centered. It's like, not only am I I'm a member of the Conservative Party, but I went to Oxford, and I didn't grow up in the inner city, and because of that, it's all about they see me as a traitor, but it's not particularly because of your aspiration why people are critical of you. But I think it's more because you chose a particular party. So if he obviously, and he has, went to Oxford and didn't grow up, because there are a number, quite a lot of MPs who are very successful, who have great aspiration, but they went to Labour Party. They're in the Labour Party. No one actually ever comments about their achievements or their success because they're Labour. So I think he's, to me, the reason why I struggle with the article a little bit is because I think he conflated the two. I think if you just focus on the fact that you decided to be a conservative and people have an issue with black people being a conservative, that is actually why people are making all these comments. Not necessarily because you're a high achiever. And I think that is slightly misleading what he's saying, that because he's a high achiever as a black person, is almost like the liberals don't really agree that he should be a high achiever, which is not correct at all. And I think that first and foremost, I take issue that he decided to write in the Daily Mail. Says a lot. But anyway, and then the article said was a lot about him. And then at the bottom, the last few paragraphs was more around Black Lives Matter movement and, trying to inspire the young black people to get involved and support what he's doing. So he brought in the black people, as in supporting black people closer to the end. But the main article was more about himself, and I'm not quite sure where he was going with it. And then trying to remind us, this is Black History Month. Black History Month is not about you, BIM. It's about a black community, and I would have expected more around that, not necessarily about being a high achiever, which is fine. But the issue, the crux of this article really should be about, we have an issue with the Conservative Party. That's
well, I think the interesting thing is that it is opening up this level of conversation, and I'm glad that we are talking into it, and I'm glad that it is coming to the forefront, because I've been pushing for this level of discussion. Keima, before we wrap up, what's your last take on that before going to David here?
Yeah, so for me with BIM, and I think it's the same when it comes to Kemi as well. There's a lot of conservatives who happens to be black, seems to, for some reason, when they get to the high echelons of the Conservative Party, and this is one of the views that a lot of people hold outside the Conservative Party, they seem to sort of forget where they come from, and people don't find them in touch with the community at all. And some of the things that they say, we heard from Kemi last week, some of the things that she said in terms of representation and, the education system seem very, very naive, and not, is not within what, people would not understanding the fact that there's discrimination and inequality within the black community. And so when they get to the Conservative Party, they don't speak for us. They forgot where they've come from. And I think that's the fundamental problem here. It's not about the fact that he is a high achiever. It's not about the fact that liberals have low expectations, because ultimately a lot of conservatives, if you take away the political allegiance, a lot of black people, for example, have more allegiance to the Conservative Party. But why they don't vote for Conservative is because of some of the things that's come out of the Conservative Party from the time of you've got, for example, under Thatcher, where they were saying go back where you come from. You've got for example, previously on the immigration rules, some of the policies that were said, it's just not aligned with some of the things that people in the black community would feel comfortable with. And so so BIM, what he's doing is, I think, is inflating things. He's not really connecting with the real issues when it comes to the black community. And I think that's the ultimate problem when it comes to the Conservative Party and a whole, in terms of reaching individuals outside the Conservative Party, black people outside the Conservative Party, because they just don't speak and they're not connecting to us, and that is the problem.
So what you're saying is that black persons who reach the echelons within the Conservative Party somehow lose touch with the black community. Is it that they don't do black?
And I think that's what happened. When I read the article, I questioned myself. BIM, he talks about inner city, but I'm like, do you really go into the inner city? Do you really understand inequality? Because I'm not quite sure Kemi understood it when she asked us that question last week. No, I'm not quite sure. And because these are the kind of things, because if you really understand inequality within the justice system, within the education system, within the health system, you would not stand in front of parliament in parliament like that and ask questions to a fellow Labour MP. There's some things I think that you should not do. There's some things that has to be political, and that is the problem. And they're not sending the right messages when they have to be so divisive, and that is the problem. Ultimately, I've always voted Conservative, but that's the fundamental issue I've always had with the Conservative Party. One of the things I do admire about Trump, although Trump has been criticized a lot for how he treats black people in the past, he is bold enough to come out and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for black people in this country. We have, black people suffered more in this country as a result of COVID, but we have not heard yet what the government is going to do about it. I mean, I heard something about 25 million, but what is it for? Who is it going to be targeting? How are we going to get it? There is nothing in terms of targeting specifically, to the needs of black people in this country. And until we could have more specific and realize that inequalities and injustices does happen in this country, a lot of people will not relate. You can't just sweep it underneath the carpet.
Yes. I see where you're coming. I see where you're coming from, Keisha and Keima. And I think David is trying to come back in, just getting back in there. But anyway, I think it's a good thing that we are talking about this topic. I think it is very important topic as much as possible, and I think the party need to recognize it, and I hope somewhere along the line as well that people are listening to this and able to recognize that it is an issue as much as possible. So let me see. Oh, Keisha is back. Yeah, Keisha is back. David, any last word on that? Any last word on that before we wrap up?
No last words on that. I thought that somebody kicked me out of the group. That's what I thought happened.
Someone kick you out?
No, I don't know what happened. I just lost all connection there for a second. I was like, anytime we talk about somebody,
it could be Richie, it could be Boris.
It could be Kim. It could be anybody. Every time we start talking party politics, see, we lost a good person again. Somebody just gets lost. So
somebody went again.
The truth of the matter, truth of the matter is you need to keep the politics to the end, because at least then you don't interrupt the show.
I tell you what I keep to the end. The super duper guy.
Okay, brilliant.
Yes, that's the guy we need to keep to the end.
Brilliant.
Rashford scored an hat trick. 1 million views, 1 million people on his the campaign. I see something also brilliant about what is happening with Rashford. Something brilliant and exciting. I see what is happening, and what I see exciting is happening is that he's steering the UK into being very proactive. David went again. He's turning the UK into being very proactive at this time. Don't you think, Keima, that he's turning the UK that they don't have to wait on government? I understand that government needs to play a part, but a lot of companies are actually stepping into play, supporting it. McDonald's and everybody's saying, I want to not just assist this young man, but based on his vision, to assist young children. What's your take on that?
I think it's fantastic. He's a hero, and another hero of mine, of course, is Sterling. The reason why I like him and Sterling in particular is because, we have this image of black boys in this country sometimes, and he just seems to just triumph above that. But what he's doing with the free school meal, I think it's a humanitarian mission. It's fundamental. Children in this country, one of the richest countries in the G8, should not be going to bed hungry. It's just, regardless of what political party you are, that should not happen. And this is something I think we should all agree on, and should not be making it, voting against it and all that. It should not happen. And we should just need to find the money for it. If we can find the money for every other thing, we should be able to find money so that children don't go to bed hungry.
Okay, David, last word.
Well said. Can't say anymore. I'm so happy, guys. A man of the North. And we're doing so well, able to balance his footballing skills with that of the nation. I think what's fantastic here is, I know we can talk about race. I don't think this is apart from race. The angle, not the angle so much. I don't think it's taking an angle. It's the fact that this involves kids. It's as simple as that. And taking that position is helpful for everybody across the board, whether you're black, white, Asian, or whatever. So the fact here is it's such a positive kind of story here. People can just take the back seat, but he's taking it forward, and he's championing at the bit to try and to get kids just that necessity to look after kids. And so I don't even think it should be a political issue. It should just be a given. But yeah, what do I know? I'll leave it to Rashford. Well done.
David, you actually know a lot, just to let you know that. So, well, anyway, Rashford, all power to him, and great that he's doing fantastic things and holding government accountable. I think there's a petition going around for stopping the subsidy for MPs at the House of Commons as a result of this. and I think somewhere in another constituency, people have been putting food, empty plates, right in front of an MP house. And I believe the scheme of Eat and Help. What was that scheme that to do?
Eat Out and Help Out.
Yeah, I think people are saying, "Hey, you're actually doing so much to subsidize. Why not for the children?" But the most important thing that I see is that everybody is chipping in, and I'm going to speak to this guy, Sunday, hopefully from Jamaica, talking about United Way. I know United Way is doing some fantastic thing in helping lots of young people, children out there who are impoverished at this time during COVID. And also, they get a lot of donation from corporate. And also, interesting thing he said, which I won't say, he said, you'll be surprised to find where the individual organizations are getting donations from, whereby some companies, they give, the employees dedicate to give $10 or so of their wage towards that organization. So it's, I'm not going to say the big society, but it has that sort of ring to people power and not waiting on government to be proactive. So in with Rashford thing, I would say let it be a parallel thing whereby while the government is maybe playing around, let's not wait for them to do it. Let's and if anything, the government will feel it somehow in the polls. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. I'm just being fair and objective here. So so those are my last words, really. Wonderful initiative, as Lorna said, inspired young man. I take my hat off to him. I take my hat off to him right now as well. Who let's have a hat? I took my hat off to him. So guys, listen. Unless there's any other thing, have a smashing week. Sorry, anybody?
No, I was going to say last word from me would be thank you for the support this evening for Prostate Cancer UK. I'll hopefully share a link at the end of the video. Thank you for supporting regards to the running aim. I achieved my target and then some. Thank you for the financial donations for Prostate Cancer UK. I think there's still one more person.
Yes.
Just one more person that may well want to donate.
I just need to go onto the phone and do it. Listen, listen. I get called out all the while. Keisha called me.
Oh, is that Sylbourne? I was wondering even who the person is.
Hey guys, I did not mention any names. I didn't mention any names.
Hot, man. It's getting hot flushes.
If you want to put yourself out there, Sylbourne, that's upon you. I didn't mention any names.
I put myself out there because it is good. It shows accountability, transparency, and responsibility. It's been very conservative.
Three big words: accountability, transparency, and responsibility.
I always say those. And ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share something to you all because today is Keima and Keisha's birthday. And, we want to wish them a happy birthday. Keima,
happy birthday to you. Yeah. Happy birthday.
Lovely. Thank you so much. That is such a beautiful card. Thanks everybody for wishing us a wonderful birthday. We really appreciate it.
And Diane is the one. Diane is the one. She's on Instagram. She said, "Happy birthday, ladies. Have a blessed day." We will not get into the issue as to who was born first, even though twins. I don't know. David is going to say, "Why you go there again, Sylbourne? Why you go there again? Why you go there again?"
But Sylbourne, I just want to say I'm very, very happy to be on your show. Alongside my sister, of course, it is quite unique. I mean, she's so talented. I just think I'm here by default, but I think I'm trying to make waves. Slowly but surely. I know you had her in mind, and you're trying to reach out to her, but you're just kind of say, all right, just be nice and get me, allow me to come on your show as well. It's like all these times, we have so many pictures together, some places that we've been to, but it's only because you and Keima keep going and I'm just tagging along like the assistant, So
it's interesting what you said because you showed those pictures from years ago with Boris and all these different guys there and stuff like that. These bloody Tories, you know what I'm saying?
And the only how I'm Boris is because of you both, isn't it? He must have thought I was conservative. I'm like, yeah, I am today. And William Hague, and there's so many politicians I met because of you guys. Brilliant. Yeah, I was just the assistant.
Well, listen. Just to show that tomorrow night, just for people, tomorrow night I've got this young lady named Esther Adiose, a film director. We're going to talk about activism in filming. She done some stuff on DV, and we're going to touch a bit on Nigeria. She's of Nigerian background, as you know, what is happening in Nigeria there. So it's the U connections. We're going to talk about that as well. That is going to be very, very interesting tomorrow, because I still want to keep having that regular interaction with young people. I think that is very important, and also I've got confirmation And I tell her, this is going to be good. This is going to be good, guys. Let me show you this. I've got confirmation for a guest to come on my show. We're just waiting on a date for it to happen, and it's Mr. Mark Golding. Mark Golding is running for the president of the People's National Party, and he's running for the People's National Party, and he gave confirmation that he's looking forward to go to the show. So I gave him 3 dates in order to come to talk about it. Ultimately, if he wins, chances are he goes against Broga, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, and ultimately
then he could be the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
The Prime Minister. But at the same time, as a result of that, and why I'm doing this, it is to put pressure on people, because as a result of that, I hope to get Lisa Hanna.
Fantastic.
She's running against it. And if you get one,
Lisa.
Yeah, if you get one, the other will normally want to show their face as well. So
come on, Lisa, come on the show.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that happening very soon as well. And their election date is November the 7th, next week. So it's going to happen quick. But either way, still, I want to try to make sure we have these level of connection. Okay. Cool.
Well done, Simon. Sylbourne.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining on the show. Lorna, she said happy birthday to you guys. She said happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you, Lorna.
It's really that's huge. We'd love to hear what Mark Golding has to say. What happened to Lisa? Well, Lisa will come forth. Lisa is quite not ready, but it'd be good to see if she could change our minds. Okay. And for Lorna and everybody, thank you so much for coming on. And remember to like and subscribe to the SYLBOURNE Show. Like and subscribe, and say I wish a happy birthday to Keisha and Keima. Make sure on Instagram, and you get a prize from them when they're whoever win the election, and Jim is going to buy everybody a coffee when Biden wins. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And David, I don't know, it's a pity you didn't say it, but people can watch the prostate.
Yes. So if you go to YouTube and you look for Jamaican Diaspora UK, search for the YouTube channel, you'll have obviously the previous discussions that we've had on breast cancer, mental health and well-being, and also organ donation. But prostate cancer awareness was this evening. So it's YouTube, just search for Jamaican Diaspora UK, and you'll be able to find the link on there. Also on Facebook, JD UK official.
Okay, fantastic. And that's a great
so much.
Good man. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good night. See you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, and Saturday at 9 with another musical thing with the lady, and Sunday with Mr. Paul Cole talking about United Way. Have a good night and bless.